Hi there, welcome to another edition of Talk Stocks. I'm your host, Keir Reynolds, and today we're lucky enough to have Gary Thompson, CEO of Silver47 Exploration Corp. Trades on the TSX Venture Exchange with the ticker AGA. How you doing today, Gary?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on. Been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. We've known each other for a bit of time, and you came on, I guess, probably about a year and a half ago, talking a bit about sort of mining and how important it was to sort of the electrification and critical metals and things like that. So look forward to kind of unpacking what you have going on with Silver47. You guys have just announced a pretty interesting sort of merger here, at the market sort of merger with a company called Summa Silver. So look forward to kind of unpacking what that sort of looks like, what that looks like for you. But before we get into all that, for a few of my viewers that don't know who you are, maybe you could explain a little bit about your background.
Sure, happy to. Well, I'm a geologist by training. I guess I'm pushing now 30 years in the biz, but when I say biz, I mean resources exploration. Started in mineral exploration, spent 5 years in the oil patch, and I guess Silver47 would be my number 4 public company. Originally started after I got out of the oil patch. I was in geothermal power development.
Yeah.
You may remember Sierra Geothermal Power, which built that up. That was a US-focused power developer, which was acquired and basically sold that in 2010. And then started Brixton Metals, which I'm 15 years into that. We're still working away on Brixton at Gold Silver Explorer in BC. And then the other company I had was called Gold 79, which ended up merging with a company called Bullet to become West Point Gold, which has been having some great success in Arizona and Nevada. I'm out of that now other than a shareholder. And then now Silver47 is, I guess, my next venture on the silver side. So busy entrepreneur and looking for those opportunities, those diamonds in the rough, if you will.
So you got a pretty good scorecard there. You got 4 pubcos. You've got 2, great successes. One that you're still working hard on there, Brixton. Now, Brixton, you've got a major as a bit of a partner or a major financier, do you not?
Yeah, in 22, Brixton brought in BHP, the world's largest miner, as the largest shareholder of Brixton. And well, actually, we just announced today, just launched our drilling campaign this year. So the drill is turning to the right, and we'll have a program going there all summer.
Hey, excellent. Well, let's turn our attention to the headline here with what you have going on with Silver47. It's this at-the-market merger with Summa Silver. Could you walk us through a little bit about that? Why now, and maybe walk us through the terms?
Sure. Well, as you probably know, and people that are in the space, I think, recognize that there's just limited capital for the amount of companies. And when we first met up with Summa, I was actually half joking that in one of the conferences that we could merge all these companies together and we'd still be too small. And I wasn't too far off. I think there's just simply a lot of companies and just not enough capital in the space. So we're the strict competition for limited dollars. And ultimately, what Silver47 was trying to do is to build a silver-focused company in the U.S. And when we met up with the Summa Silver guys, and I've heard of Summa, but I didn't really know much about their assets. I started looking into what they have, and I was quite intrigued by what I saw there with the potential for quite large resource base, and still relatively early stage, while they had some original resources. And part of the challenge you find in mergers, and I think a lot of people would like to see more mergers, but I find the challenge is my pile is better than your pile, and I figure I should have better value, more value out of a deal. And so when we looked at this transaction, we said, well, why don't we just do it at market? Market is the market. The stock market is supposed to be an efficient. Sometimes there's disconnects in there, but we thought an easy way to get past that, mine is better than yours, is to do an at market deal. So we did that and get both Silver47 and Summa had a relatively small team, and I'm not hung up on titles. So I thought, well, Galen's a young, energetic geo with 20 years experience. Let's work together on this thing and see if we can unlock some big shareholder value. So yeah, it was pretty straightforward at market merger. It works out to something like 56% Silver47 shareholders and 44% Summa, based on our 20-day VWAP. So it'll be combined. We'll have like 126 million shares outstanding.
Excellent. Well, thanks for walking us through that. So post-merger, the value proposition for investors, what are you guys going to own? How many sort of projects, any sort of ounces in the ground? What would be sort of the most important projects for the combined entity?
Yeah, well, I think, if you step back and just look at what Silver47 brings, I mean, we recently published a resource on a project in Alaska called Red Mountain. It's 168 million silver equivalent ounces. Now, it's a VMS polymetallic inferred resource, and what it does, this transaction, so it takes us from 168 million silver equivalent to 246 million silver equivalent. And importantly for us was, so we've had have a lot of base metals and critical minerals in the Red Mountain resource. We had about a 33% precious to base metal ratio, and now going to 60%. So I think, as we grow and advance this story, and get out there and educate the investor community about the opportunity, one of the goals we have is to obviously get bigger. That's really the mandate here. Ultimately, we want to get bigger. And I think larger companies, you attract more institutional funds. You generally have greater liquidity. And obviously, one of the goals for us is to get into some of these silver index funds, which they just buy your stock, and ultimately that helps on your share price.
So the combined company gives you almost 250 million ounces of silver equivalent ounces, and you mentioned that by combining, it actually takes you to a bit more of a precious metal focused. When you talk about this equivalency, which everybody does these days. Sometimes most of it's base metal. Is this one, the combined entity will be mostly value based? Well, most of that resource would be in the precious metal category now?
Yeah, so 60% of that nearly 250, I think it works out to about 144 ounces of silver EQ on the silver. If you just look at the silver and gold, so it's equivalent to about 144, 145 ounces of silver EQ. And if you break that down, it's probably something like 80 million ounces of actual silver. So depending on, I'm not a silver purist. I know there's guys out there that is like, that's not a silver deposit. I want
it's a
silver
zinc deposit.
Right? But at the end of the day, metal is metal, and if you get silver as a byproduct, there's nothing wrong with that. And I like to remind people some of the largest silver deposits in the world are actually lead zinc mines that do very well, thank you.
Yeah.
So let's not get too hung up on that. I think the point is that we have good value rock. If you look at the grade, we're still in that 300 to 400 gram on a silver equivalent basis. Doesn't matter how you shape it. We're getting good recoveries on these metals, and we still have lots of work to do to unlock the value there. But look at we think we can grow organically through the drill bit. And look, there's two ways to grow in this business, right? One is through the drill bit to grow your resource and get bigger. The other one is to do M&A. And if you want to get bigger faster, M&A is a quicker way to go. And so we like to do both. I mean, we have a pretty aggressive drill campaign for this summer. So the focus I guess we're ramping up as we speak here. We'll be drilling starting in early June on Red Mountain. So the focus is going to be Red Mountain for the summer. And then as we get into the fall and pushing into winter, we'll wind that down and shift gears into either New Mexico or Nevada. We haven't made that decision yet, but that's a good opportunity to keep the news flow going, keep the story exciting and alive and growing.
And so in terms of that combined resource base, how many projects is that over? I think you might have said, is that over 3
Yeah, it's 3 projects. So it's Red Mountain in Alaska. That's the largest of the 3. And then the other 2, one is called Mogollon in New Mexico. It's a classic, looks like a classic silver district that you would see in Mexico, but it's in the U.S. And then the other one is in Nevada called Tonopah, which is a famous mining town, Tonopah, Nevada, between Vegas and Reno.
Yeah, I guess they're sort of got some closeology there with BlackRock Silver, which some of my viewers are familiar with what Andrew Pollard's been up to. So good jurisdiction, interesting jurisdiction, and whatnot. So it looks like you guys have a good chunk of ground in that sort of same area.
Yeah, it's to the east. So BlackRock there's like a big east-west trend there in around the mining town of Tonopah. BlackRock has part of that, and then to the west, which they have about 100 million ounces now, and Summa is around Tonopah and to the east, so the eastern extension of that. And they just haven't done as much drilling. I think BlackRock has done 4 or 5 times the meters that Summa has so far. So lots of room to unpack big ounces there, and that's the plan.
Excellent. And so just let's turn our attention to sort of post-merger. You kind of alluded to roles a little bit. You'll be continuing, you'll be passing the baton, I guess, from CEO duty to Galen, and you'll be continuing as the executive chairman. What will that see your sort of day-to-day role sort of looking like as the strategy sort of moves forward?
Well, I think, we're still a small company. I think we're going to be, I don't know, between 70 and 80 million market cap company. So I think ultimately we're all going to get out and continue to tell the story to get, interest in the name. The other thing that I'll be focusing on will be obviously Red Mountain is more advanced. One thing that we found is that we have pretty significant amounts of antimony and gallium, which I think most people know now that are critical minerals and strategic to the U.S. Department of Defense. And we think as we advance the Red Mountain project, there's significant pots of capital, if you will, available from the U.S. government for critical minerals like antimony and gallium. And so we're going to be working to see if we can attract some of those funds. And sometimes those are in the form of grants. I even heard the U.S. is looking at potential direct investments and or loan guarantees. So we'll be working hard on trying to find sources of capital and obviously, looking to attract more institutional investment to the name as well. So continuing to work hard on unlocking the potential. I am a geologist, so I do like to get my 2 bits a little bit on some of the geology and drilling side, but I think ultimately just getting out there and looking for new investors and as I said, trying to get bigger and trying to get into those index funds is the short-term goal.
Excellent. So one of the things I guess you're looking to do for Red Mountain is update a resource and also come out with a PEA sometime in 2026. So is that sort of what the exploration plans are sort of focused on, is sort of doing the work that's needed so that you can get those things accomplished?
Yeah, the main focus of the budget, and we do have a concurrent financing. It's not a requirement of the merger, but we thought, well, there's momentum here. Let's add additional funds so that largely that we could really hit the Red Mountain hard this year with drilling. The main focus is going to be expanding the resource. So we have 2 zones that make up the 168 million ounce inferred resource. We think there's lots of room to grow that. And I guess the goal here is to get enough resources, hoping to have a new statement come out early, either late this year, early next year. And we hope that it's enough to, move this thing into a PEA. And if you look at what it takes to make a mine, you need really 10 years of mine life at a minimum. I'd like to have 15. And if you break it down on, say, a 2,500 ton a day operation, that's like 18 million tons. And we're sitting at 15.6 million tons of good grade, which doesn't include the critical minerals, by the way. At least antimony and gallium are not included. So we think those are value adds. As we do, some of the work we want to do is additional metallurgical work on those to see what kind of recoveries we might anticipate. So yeah, we think we can grow it. If we can get enough tons drilled off into a new resource, then yeah, we think that sort of 18 to 20 million tons should be enough to push us into a PEA. And then we'll be in a position where we've got an advanced stage project that we can, advance into a development. So that, and combined with obviously lots of upside to new discoveries. I mean, this is a VMS. We have a VMS district in Alaska. It's like 60 kilometers of favorable geology. So there's no shortage of new targets. And while the main focus is drilling off the resource, you always want to test some new ideas and new areas to see if you can make some new discoveries to add to the long-term viability of the project. So hopefully we'll have some of that, exciting drill results, hopefully some new discoveries, and a growing resource.
And so I know you mentioned earlier there's 3 projects to sort of move along. You don't necessarily know the sequence necessarily for what's going to happen after the sort of winter shutdown in Alaska. But this summer and into the fall is kind of your Alaska focus, Red Mountain. Do you know how many meters you plan to drill? How many drill holes? What the sort of plan is in terms of like potential news flow for kind of investors?
Yeah, well, I think it's going to be a good amount of news flow. I mean, I don't have the number of holes yet. We're still actually working through those detailed drill plans. But I think on an overall basis, anticipating somewhere in the neighborhood of, 8 to maybe 10,000 meters. If we get in there, like I say, early June, and, we haven't had a full season. Last year, we only drilled a half a dozen holes there as some infill. So I guess this will be a bit of a gauge on how long we can work on this project. But, usually in this part of the world, I think it's safe to say you can probably go till October. So June to October should be a good amount of news flow. And then, yeah, like we said, we'll be winding that down and then shifting our focus into lower 48.
And in terms of that drilling, I know you're still putting plans together. Last time you did some infill. Will there be more infill, or is there going to be some step out trying to like grow this thing?
Yeah, the main focus is going to be growing it. We see, this resource is virtually wide open. So we definitely want to take some big steps to grow it. If you look at like one of the zones is called West Tundra Flats, and some of the drill spacing there is quite broad. I mean, the good thing is this mineralized horizon is very consistent, but the drill spacing is quite broad. So we will need to do some infill. There's some of the old drilling didn't do very well in core recovery, so didn't get the rock in the box that we need. So there's some holes in the resource that we think are just a function of poor quality drilling. So we plan some holes in around that to hopefully bring that back in, and so stuff like that. Just filling in some of the gaps and then just expanding the limits.
Right. So did it? I guess historically they hit some void, or is it highly fractured? Maybe the drill bit broke. You guys have got some large diameter diamond core, a good driller lined up.
It's exactly right. Good drillers, larger core. When I find that the smaller core, for some reason, they just don't do as well for recovery. And so they just had poor recovery. So if you think of it, you're in a mineralized zone and you just don't get the rock in the box. Well, it's hard to assay something you don't have. So we've demonstrated last year, we've got really good recovery, 90-95% recovery, and more importantly, in the mineralized horizons. In some cases, higher grade. We got a 15 gram gold last year that we were infilling. There's about a 100-meter gap that we were filling in that historically had 5 grams on one side and 8 grams on the other side, and we had 15 grams in the middle. So that goes to show better grades on better quality. And in one case, there was a 7-meter interval historically, and we ended up drilling a 22-meter interval, again, just by getting more rock in the box. So stuff like that, we think there's lots of room to improve this resource.
So one of the things that I hear about all the time is leverage to the silver price, silver squeeze. Oh, silver's going to do the catch-up trade with gold, and quite a few companies are kind of looking to roll up and talk about sort of a combined kind of silver equivalent kind of number. How many ounces? You kind of mentioned in terms of tonnage, needing about 18. What do you think it takes in terms of like an individual project on a pit constrained sort of like basis? How many tons do you think, and how many sort of equivalent ounces do you think it takes before something would, be discussed about being an economic, making a production decision?
Yeah, I mean that's a factor of a lot of, well, I guess a lot of factors that go into that. Um,
Sure.
but
I
yeah, I
mean, the
think it's,
geo speak.
yeah. Well, if you're talking, like again, you need to get financing to build a mine. You need at least 10 years of resource at good economic grades. And if you look at what is good economic grade, well, open pit mines, you can run those at, I don't know, ounce per ton silver cost. So you probably need, at least 2 ounces, easy pickings, good recovery to make it work. You want, obviously, higher the grade, the better. It's just look at your margins, right? If it comes down to margins. And if you look at underground ops are anywhere from 100 to 120, perhaps, depending on where you are and what kind of underground technique you're. So now you're looking at sort of, 3 ounces of silver to make an underground operation. So
And
if you,
in terms of gram equivalent, 3 ounces would be what, about 90.
yeah, call it 100 grams around round
Yeah.
numbers, right?
And so
And if
you
we're
guys are sitting, on a sort of an equivalent basis of over between 300 and 400
yeah,
grams per ton. So you guys have pretty good grade.
yeah, exactly. So that's the thing. If you look at it on a value basis, I know you got to run through a bunch of infrastructure and this, that, and the other thing. But yeah, I think just on a and the way to look at these things is look at what other developers and miners are mining. Well, they're making money at uh, sometimes in some cases much lower grade. So it depends on the situation, depends on the deposit type, depends on the metallurgy.
Right.
Lots of factors that go into it, but you want to start with a good high grade. And I think one of the compelling thing I think that I'm really excited about with the merger with Summa and Silver47 is that we're coming out with a large resource in that 300 to 400 gram silver equivalent. There's just not a lot of good silver stories out there in general, and especially if you're talking high grade silver in the U.S. They just reduced the numbers. So I think one of the standouts for us is the fact that we've got good high grade silver focused company in the U.S. And I think that's going to be the compelling story. And if you look
Yeah.
if you look at the value of this thing on a enterprise value per ounce in the ground, we're something like 19 cents ounce in the ground. So on a metric to compared to our peers, it appears that we're quite cheap.
Yeah, I personally think one of the only games in town is really to be in the U.S. If you look at what's going on with the current administration, and it seems to be pretty pro sort of mining, pro industry, looking to really make sure that they get back a little bit of sort of leverage in the world by being able to have their own commodities, their own resources, and things like that. So, very good point to bring up. Thanks for bringing that up. Why don't we turn our attention? You kind of mentioned, the merger is going to also mean that you get to merge your combined bank accounts, and will make you stronger from a capital standpoint. So you mentioned a concurrent raise. You guys are looking at if there's interest there for another $5 million of sort of gross proceeds. What would that sort of give you in total funding, assuming you sort of closed on the full amount?
Yeah, well, so Silver47 raised just under 10 million earlier this year, so this will add another 5 million to the treasury. So we'll be around 14-15 million post merger cash.
And does that sort of get you through kind of the balance of the year, or do you think you need to raise more money before we get out of the fall winter?
Well, I think this will get us through the year for sure. And one thing you never want to do is spend your treasury down to zero. So we'll have some reserve, and with those funds, we'll have a good season and some money in the bank for the end of the year. I think going into the winter, if we want to drill, like say New Mexico or Nevada, we will likely need to come back to market at that point. But hopefully there's a bunch of drill results. The market, let's all hope that the price of silver continues to notch higher, and there's a lot more interest, and our next raise is at much higher levels.
You've got a couple of, I guess the combined company will have a couple of notable sort of institutional backers. Can you give us sort of a rundown on anybody notable that we should mention that can be mentioned?
Well, yeah, I think it's no secret. Mr. Eric Sprott is invested in both companies, and so he'll be a significant shareholder on the pro forma company. And Crescat Capital is another notable shareholder that's been a strong supporter. So yeah, we'll continue to add names to that as we grow. I mean, we're still largely a retail story, I would say, and that's one of the missions we have is as getting bigger is hopefully attracting more institutional funds to the name. But that's work that we have to do and get out there and yeah, tell the story and have success on the project to advance it.
Well, a BC sort of counterpart on the sort of silver development side is a company called Dolly Varden. They just recently announced and just recently completed a major U.S. listing, getting onto a senior exchange. Is that something with you guys being, with your assets being in America and the U.S., is that something that could be considered at some point if your valuation was right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we looked at that. And that's certainly an attractive exchange. I mean, let's face it, the U.S. is the largest market in the world, and I think we certainly would love to be trading on the New York Exchange, and I think we just need to get a little bit bigger. We need to increase our capital inflows, but yeah, I think that is, my guess is hopefully the next. I don't know if we could do it. It's not going to happen this year, but I'd say the next few years, certainly, we certainly have our eye on it, and it's going to be a function of size and capital.
Well, make sure to give Sean a call because he did one of the fastest that I've seen. I'm sure there was a lot of pre-work, but he made it look easy from an external point of view. So, anyways, that's that. Now, you've mentioned hey, we got to get bigger. You've mentioned a couple times on this podcast here, we're plan on getting bigger. I think you've actually got a stated goal that you want to build towards 1 billion ounces of silver equivalent in the ground. That would probably make you one of the largest undeveloped companies if you were able to reach that sort of stated goal. Is that something practical? What's the path look like in order to get there? Is it just through more M&A as well as exploration? Maybe talk us through that.
Yeah, I know it's a pretty lofty, ambitious goal, isn't it? But if you just look at this transaction, we're close to 25% of the way there. So yeah, we've got a big nut to crack there, absolutely. And again, how do you grow as a company in the mining space? It's through the drill bit and it's through M&A. And you can get there through drilling. If you look at our resources, I think Red Mountain, we came up with a pretty aggressive exploration target on that as well. There's so many targets on that project. Most of their the historical drilling has been focused on 2 of probably 20 targets or more. But again, that's just going to take time. If you look at the Mogollon district in New Mexico, which comes in from the Summa side of the equation, they have identified 77 kilometers of vein structure. And again, it looks to me like a classic Mexican silver district. And only the resource and the mining and the drilling has been focused on about 2.4 kilometers of that. So, you can project potentially that as you do more drilling, that will come in. Now, of course, doing the M&A, doing deals like this, you can, on one transaction, in our case, we added substantial resource in a merger. So yes, I mean, I don't believe this is the end of our merger story. We're going to continue to look for like-minded people, but also attractive silver-focused assets in the U.S. initially. Not that we wouldn't look out, and we have been looking outside the U.S., but I think it makes for a compelling story if you've got a silver-focused, high-grade opportunity in the U.S. And we know that these high-grade silver opportunities are rare. So if you can start to build something that shows growth towards those kind of numbers, it's got to be a compelling investment opportunity. Even now, but then you see silver potentially moving higher. I think the fun is yet to get underway as far as the silver goes. I mean, let's face it. It's been the silver market's been interesting and it's had some moves, but compared to the gold market, silver hasn't moved yet. So I think everybody's still waiting for the big move in silver. So I think the fun is yet to come.
For sure, I've been picking away at some silver names, and we'll certainly be, Summa is one that own a bit of, and not only are you merging and getting on board some good projects, but you're also picking up some talent there in Galen, and he's got a pretty bright IR guy there with Jordy. I'd be remiss to say Jordy Belfoure. Man, what a name! But you got some good new young sort of energy that should get those guys on the road in the U.S. and just talking up the story, and leave you to sort of do the executive type work in terms of the geological stuff and exploration, and maybe looking at some M&A stuff. But anyways, you got something interesting going on there with getting these guys, and you're right. Silver is definitely looks like it's due for a catch up. So how long? When's this sort of thing set to close? I know there's all this legal stuff you got to go through and blah blah blah. But what sort of timeline are you looking at before it be sort of completed?
Yeah, we're hoping to have this wrapped up towards late July. It is a plan of arrangement, so once we get assume it gets the shareholder vote, we have to go through the courts to get it finally approved. So I would say late July. Worst case, maybe it rolls into early August. But yeah, we're not too far out now. I think most of the docs are out. I don't think shareholders have received the circular yet, but I think it's in final form, and that'll be going out to shareholders shortly. So yeah, let's anticipate towards the end of July closing, and yeah, I think we got an exciting year ahead of us.
What are a couple of things that investors can expect then, sort of like post-closing? Is that when you think some of the drilling from your Red Mountain stuff would start to come out? I would imagine that assays would sort of come towards the end of the summer.
Yeah, I mean, I think, if we're in there in early June, I mean, it's hard to say with the labs. They seem to go ebbs and flows as far as timelines, but I would hope by the end of July, we should start to see some initial drill results. My expectation is that we're going to have some impressive high-grade drill results coming out throughout the summer and fall months. So keep an eye for that. We'll just keep charging away on it and see what we can deliver.
Excellent. Well, Gary, it's great to catch up. Congrats on announcing this at the market merger. It's a great model that you've gone and done. It certainly makes another compelling name in the space, and I love that you're U.S. focused. And then I also love the team that you've been able to pull together, because I know that you like to mentor and bring on bright young talent. So I think you got a couple of good people there coming from the Summa side, combined with your already exceptional team. So I wish you lots of success with it, and it's definitely a name I'm going to be continuing to sort of follow. Look forward to getting you on again for a bit of an update after you get some work and you get the merger complete.
Yeah, I'm happy to, and I appreciate that, and thank you very much.
Thanks, Gary. Have a good one.
All right, bye now.